Happy Friday. Sorry, I'm not there. So for today's lab, you're going to get this paper, one per group. Make sure you get your group number, period, and everybody's name on it. And this is going to be 2 days, so you need your responsible person in your group to hold on to it for the next day as well. But what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be taking copper sulfate and iron, and we're going to be reacting them as a single replacement reaction, and it has the reaction on the top of the lab. And then we're going to be calculating the percent yield, which we'll be talking about in class next time. So to start off this lab, what you're going to do is grab a piece of filter paper. They're over by the balance. I'm grabbing a filter paper. Okay, it's by the balance, and you're going to write your group number and your class period on the edge of the filter paper in pencil. It does need to be in pencil because it will be getting wet and ink would bleed, so you want to write it in pencil. So you're going to blah, 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 write it. Then you're going to go to your balance, and you're going to weigh out the mass of the filter paper. So I'm at the balance. Here we are. You see it? Okay, so it's at 0. If it's not at 0 before you put it on, push the 0 or the tare button. Putting it on. This balance apparently isn't working because it's not changing. I'm going to turn it on and off and try it again. But then you're going to record the mass of the filter paper. Because in the end, you're going to use the mass of the filter paper. You're going to subtract it to get the mass of what's collected on it. Okay, there it goes. The balance is now working. All right, so I got 1.39 grams. So on my paper, I'm going to record 1.39 grams. And then I'm going to put it back at my lab station. Okay, then at your lab station, there's 2 beakers. There's a small beaker and there's a big beaker. I'm going to take my small beaker. I'm going to put my small beaker on the balance, and I'm going to push tare because I want it to say 0 while it's on there. And then it says on your lab to weigh out about 2.8 grams of copper sulfate. There's 2 vials here that have your chemicals in it. There's copper sulfate and there's iron. Make sure you measure out the right thing. And then there's scoops that are very high-tech scoops that I've labeled for which chemical to use. So I'm going to use my scoop, and I'm going to weigh out about 2.5 grams. I'm not going to be super careful here, nor am I going to try to get super close to the 2.5 because I don't need to. So I got 1.26. Guys, do not spend forever trying to get exactly 2.5. Get within the range of 2.5, and it goes out 2 decimal places, so you might get 2.48. That's great, or 2.57, whatever. Close enough, okay? And then you're going to record this mass also on your paper. There's lines for the mass of your filter paper and line for the mass of your copper sulfate. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to add to this beaker of copper sulfate approximately 25 grams of milliliters of water. This really doesn't have to be measured exactly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take the wash bottle. It has distilled water in it, and I'm going to pour to about the 25 line mark in the beaker, because the amount of water really doesn't matter. Okay? And then I need to get this dissolved. Okay? I'm going to put it on the hot plate, turn it on, and with a stir bar, stir it until it's dissolved, making sure that I don't let it ever get to boil. Okay? So I'm going to get my stir out. I'm going to stir it until it's all dissolved. Then I'm going to take it off the hot plate for our next step. I'm going to pause here to go to the next portion. I'm back. So I have here on my hot plate, I have it up about medium heat because, again, I don't want it to boil. I have my stirring stick here to stir to dissolve that. Now, at this point, it says one person from your group should be focused on this and not letting it boil, while another person moves on to the next step. The next step is to measure out your iron. So because there's just one of me, I'm going to let that sit there. Hopefully it doesn't boil because we really don't want that to happen. And I'm going to measure out my iron. So I'm back to the balance to measure out the iron. I'm going to put on the balance one of these plastic weighing boats. I'm going to put it on the balance. I'm going to zero it. And then I'm going to use the iron with the iron scoop to measure out about, just let me see what it says. I believe it's 0.5. Yeah, 0.5 grams. Okay. So I'm going to weigh it out about 0.5 grams. I got 0.49. And you're going to record on your paper again that mass. So on here, I'm going to record this mass, and I'm going to take my iron back to my group station. Okay. So I'm here. I'm going to just check on my copper sulfate solution. It's still going, so I'm gonna just give this video a pause until it's all the way dissolved. Okay. See you in a sec. Okay, I'm back. It's all dissolved now. It really didn't take that long for it to dissolve. I'm going to turn off my hot plate now, and I'm going to remove this from the hot plate. At your station, you're either going to have one of these silicone like oven mitt things or beaker tongs that you can use to move it. So the beaker tongs, you just pick it up like this and move it, or obviously the oven mitts. You're going to move it off to the side, and then you're going to, can you see that? You're going to slowly add your iron to this solution while stirring. So I'm going to add the iron I weighed out, and I'm going to stir it while it's still hot. I want to add it and stir it in and just slowly add it till it's all in. Mix it up real good, and it's going to start reacting. You can actually see in here that the iron doesn't look the same anymore. And then I'm just going to let it sit and react. Okay, so I need to let it sit and react for about 10 minutes to cool down. So I'm going to get my funnel filtering situation set up here, and then I'll give it a pause. So let me show you how to set up the filter. So at your lab station, you're going to have a setup where you have a ring stand with a ring and a triangle and your filter. I'm going to move this so that it's closer to the beaker. You're going to have a bigger beaker down here that's going to collect the liquid as it goes through. Okay. And then you're going to take your filter paper and you're going to fold it into fourths. So I'm going to take my filter paper and I'm going to fold it in half. And then I'm going to fold that in half. And when that opens up, it matches my funnel. And so I'm going to open it up to make a cone, put it in my funnel, and then I'm going to use my wash bottle and I'm going to spray water inside of it to make the filter stick to the funnel, okay? Because it won't stay open unless it's wet. So now this is ready to filter, but I just need to wait my 10 minutes for my reaction to finish. So I'm going to pause you again and we'll go back to filtering. Okay, see you in a second. Okay, welcome back again. Now, actually, during those 10 minutes, instead of just sitting there like a bump on the log, you can work on some of your calculations because you're going to take your starting amount of calcium sulfate on the back and your starting amount of iron. You're going to convert them both to the copper to find your limiting reactant and how much copper you should be able to produce. Okay, so you can work on doing that math while you wait your 10 minutes. After the 10 minutes is up, your beaker is now cool to the touch. And so I am going to start filtering my beaker. So I'm going to take my beaker with my copper in it, and I'm going to slowly pour it in to my funnel with my filter paper. And so I'm trying to collect the solid. I like to stir it up because the solid is set to the bottom, so it pours out. And I'm going to pour it out as much as I can without overfilling it. Now there's still a bunch of solid in here. And so I'm going to use my wash bottle to kind of spray it out. So I take my wash bottle here and my beaker, and I'm just going to spray inside of it to try to get as much of that solid out, but being very careful that I don't put in too much liquid that it goes above the funnel. Okay. Because you can see the paper sticks above the funnel. I don't want the water to go above the funnel. So I'm going to rinse this out. There's no more solid left in it, so that looks good. I'm going to rinse off my stir rod just to make sure there wasn't any solid left on that. And then I'm going to let it sit and drip out. And so it's just going to sit here and drip. You can see it dripping and collecting down here. Once it's empty, I'm going to add some more distilled water and I'm going to rinse it off a couple of times. Okay, so I'm going to let it drip until it's empty, and then I'll come back and show you how to rinse it. Okay, I'm at a good point to rinse it. I'm just going to show you what it looks like inside the funnel. So you can see in there that there's not really liquid anymore. It's stopped dripping. So at this point, I just need to rinse it because there's still solution on that solid and I don't want any solution on it. So when it dries, none of the solution evaporates off. So I just want water. So I'm going to now take my wash bottle and spray again in here to clean off the copper. So I've just sprayed it, made sure I got as much touched as I can, sprayed off the sides, and I'm gonna let it drip again. And I'm going to, after it's drained to the same point, I'm gonna rinse it one more time. So I'm gonna do that off camera, and then I'll show you what to do after it's been rinsed twice. Okay guys, back again, and I realized I've been a terrible example in not wearing my goggles. Please make sure you're wearing your goggles for the whole lab. Okay, so I've rinsed this twice. This is the part of the lab that takes the longest. You just kind of got to let gravity do its thing. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my filter paper that the water is all dripped out of, and I'm going to take it out of the funnel. And I'm going to take one of the watch glasses by my station, and I'm going to just open up the filter paper again and lay it out on the funnel. Now, if you want, you can try to use your stirring rod to spread it out a little bit so it dries easier, but then you get stuff on your stirring rod that you need to wipe off. So there's no solid left on that. And then you're going to take your watch glass with your filter paper on it, and it should have your name and your class period on it, and you're going to take it over to the hood and find a place for it to dry until next class. Okay, so this is as far as you should be going with the lab for today. And then to clean up, all you need to do is take that beaker that everything dripped into and dump it out in the sink. You can go to the ends or you can just dump it out in the middle sink. I don't care, so that it's ready for the next group to use it. And that's really your lab. If you have any questions, I will be have access to my phone, so you can send me questions on Canvas. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to let you know. I will make a bin and put it in front of the fire sand bucket of extra glassware in case anything breaks and you need a replacement. Oh, the other thing is if you're in tables 3 or 4, I didn't have enough hot plates for everybody. And so between table 2 and 4, I actually have a really big hot plate for you guys to share that you can definitely fit 2 beakers on this. Just remember, whoever's done with it last, to turn off the hot plate. Yeah, and then you have your calculations to figure out what your limiting reactant was and how much copper you should have been able to make. And then that's it. Take your goggles off, make sure your area is cleaned up, and you can go ahead and take a seat and be ready for the lab.